as I've gotten older, I can't quite see everybody, so I just want to go around and say hello. It's really very sad, though. I can't see. I gotta be honest. So for those of you who've been paying attention to your tidbits, is there something interesting that you're noticing? Nobody pays attention to tidbits. This is like why I'm checking. It's supposed to be Rabbi Tina here tonight. So surprise, it's me. She is. I think I got her sick. I've been out for like a week, and now she's down for the count. So I blame it on myself. But she's now got her medicine, and she's hopefully feeling better. But surprise. We have a special Shabbat. This Shabbat is Shabbat of Hanukkah. It's also Shabbat Miketz. It's interesting because almost every year, Shabbat Hanukkah happens with the same as Miketz. And in order for that to happen, there have to be three things that happen. Let's see if I can remember them. The first, Rosh Hashanah has to occur on Shabbat. The second, the months of Cheshvan and Tishrei, that's where I'm not sure if it's Tishrei for sure, have to have 29 days in them and not 30. And that's the only way that it would not happen. Otherwise, everything else, every year, it's always Miketz. So it's just fun, a little bit of information. So during our service, there will be a couple of additions. I'll let you know when they are happening. And one of the things that you'll notice is that there's a different melody than we use for the rest of the year when we're using Micha Mocha, when we're singing Micha Mocha. Does anyone know how that's different? Don't everybody, answer at once. Anyone want to take a guess? Yeah. Want to take a guess? Oh, do you want to take a guess? Trying to guess, what is the special melody that we use for Micha Mocha during Hanukkah? Anyone? The special melody that we use is, so for every holiday, when it's a holiday, there's a special song for Micha Mocha, or a special tune that we use, and I'll give you a hint. So during Passover, does anyone know what that is? Well, you know what Passover is, for sure. All right. One of the main songs that we do for each of these is what we use for the melody for Micha Mocha. So during Hanukkah, one of the most famous songs that we do is Ma'oz Tzor. So the melody for Micha Mocha sounds like Ma'oz Tzor. So when we do it, it'll sound different, but you should be familiar with it, I hope, and you can hopefully sing along. And if you can't, then just hum or smile, and I'll know that you're participating, and it'll be wonderful. As we begin our service, we're going to start with the menorah lighting. Does anyone know why we start with the Chanukiah and not the Shabbat candles? Yes. answer that I love, of course, is that when we light them, we're bringing light into all the dark places in the world, and we most certainly are. But we light the Hanukkah menorah, the Chanukiah first, so that once we have lit our Shabbat candles, we have then said this is now time that we make sacred as Shabbat, and we're told in the Torah that we're not supposed to do what on Shabbat? Light things, right? Catch things on fire. So we're going to celebrate and welcome in Hanukkah first by lighting the candles, and then we're going to celebrate Shabbat. We say, how many of you remember if you do the blessing first or if you light the candle first? This is a trick question. I'm not going to give you a sermon. I've given you all this. You light the candles first. Why do we light the candles of Shabbat before we say the blessing? Beautiful. Excellent answer. Because once we have said the blessing, it is then officially Shabbat. And so we aren't lighting candles. So we've already done it. And so every other blessing and action that we take, first we say the blessing, and then we do the action. But if we did that, we would be right. So there is what we call like a fiction. Like this is our Jewish fiction. When we cover our eyes, right, we're bringing in the light of Shabbat. But there's also a legal fiction, which is the action we're performing of opening up our eyes and seeing the lights of Shabbat. That is the action that we perform with actually lighting the candles, or saying the blessing instead of actually lighting the candles. Does that make sense? A little bit of trivia for the evening to start with. Would you like to light the Hanukkah menorah for us, Carla? Thank you. The blessing for the Hanukkah menorah lighting is not on my sheet, but it should have been. I want to say it was, I know you do. That's because I didn't print out the correct one, did I? That's okay. You can give me just a second. So we can all participate. It's right before Kaddish, I believe. Hang on. Page 279. Page 279.
Am I doing it from this side?
Whichever side you like. All right. I would say, actually, I did it facing that way so that it was facing in the right direction.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I put it in the wrong.
So, left to right?
Yes.
My minhag has always been to say the blessing at the same time as the light.
Yes.
But I'd like to.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And if you would, read with me at the bottom of the page, not in Hebrew, but in English. We kindle these lights because of the wondrous deliverance you performed for our ancestors. During these 8 days of Hanukkah, these lights are sacred. We are not to use them, but only to behold them, so that their glow may rouse us to give thanks for your wondrous acts of deliverance. Do I have a volunteer who would be interested in lighting our Shabbat candles? Carol isn't here. Go ahead. While you come forward, we can turn as well to page 365.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
On page 365, please join with me in Ma'oz Tzur, because I hope that by singing it now, we will all remember the tune once we get there from Mi Chamocha. Ma'oz Tzur Yeshuati, L'cha na'el Shabbeach, Tikon Beit Tefilati, V'sham Toda Nizabeach, Li'etachin Matbeach, Mitzar Hamnabeach, Azegmor Bashir Mizmor, Chanukat Hamizbeach, Azegmor Bashir Mizmor, Chanukat Hamizbeach. For those of us that don't know Hebrew, we're going to do it in English. Rock of ages, let our song praise your saving power. You amidst the raging foes were our sheltering tower. Furious they assailed us, but your arm availed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. And your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. That's as far as we're going. We don't want Shabbat to feel like it is being overlooked. We turn to page 11. Ki yashmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Ki yashmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Oti leo mead beino uveni. Oti leo mead beino uveni. When I keep Shabbat, God watches over me. It is a sign forever between God and me. We're going to turn now to page 26. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, B'yalma divrach rutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uvyomechon, Uvchaye dachol bet Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman kariv, Vimaru, Amen. Yeheshme Rabba Mevarach, Le'ala mulal me'amaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, Shemei dakudasha barichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran b'alma, V'imaru, Amen. Please rise if you are able. On page 28. Baruch hu et Adonai hamivorach, Baruch Adonai hamivorach, leolam vad. On page 30, we read in Hebrew or to the left in transliteration, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil bein yom uvein layla, Adonai Tzivaot Shemo, El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Leolam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. On page 32. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. We continue on page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha v'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha v'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kadoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. Page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nadar b'kodesh, no rata'ilot osefela, no rata'ilot osefela. And then we skip to Adonai imloch leolam vad. They don't have the music for the in-between part. So we're going to say that that is kosher. Page 42. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. On page 44. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. We turn to page 46, and I invite you, if you are able, to please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei hakol, v'zocher chastei avot ve'imachot, u'mevi gula livnei v'neihem, l'ma'an shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol atarav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, mechalkel chaim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, umikayem emunato lishene afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umido melech memit, umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'emanat al hachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukadoshim b'chol yom yihalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. You may be seated. On page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Page 57. Retzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel u'tehi leratzon tamid Utehi leratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha Baruch atah Adonai she'otecha levadecha be'yira navod she'otecha levadecha be'yira navod. I want to point out as we continue on page 58 that you will want to open your book to page 264 at the same time, keeping your finger there, as there is an insertion that we do specifically for Hanukkah. So on page 58, we acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. We turn now to 264. We thank you for the miracles, for the redemption, for the mighty deeds and saving acts brought about by you, and for the wars which you waged for our ancestors in the days of old at this season, on 265. In the days of the Hasmoneans, Mattathias ben Yochanan the high priest and his children, when the evil government of Greece rose up against your people Israel to make them forget your Torah and to make them leave the laws of your will. In your great mercy, you rose up with them in their time of trouble and fought in their fight, judged their cause just. You delivered the mighty into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the unclean into the hands of the pure, the evil into the hands of the righteous, and the arrogant into the hands of those who engage in your Torah. For you made a great and holy name in your world, and for your people Israel. You brought about the great triumph and redemption on that very day. And when your children came to the Holy of Holies and emptied your temple and purified your holy place and lit candles in your holy courts and established these 8 days of Hanukkah, grateful to acknowledge and to praise your great name. At the bottom of 58, for all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, Hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. On page 61, grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, bashalom. We take just a moment for our own silent prayer and reflection. Page 62. Say shalom bimromav, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Say shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, say shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. In just a moment, we will continue with our Torah service, and I find that it's always very helpful to have more than one person on the bima during the Torah service for choreography. So I will be asking for some help, but I know that I'm sniffling. I want you all to know that I've been on antibiotics for more than a week. I don't anticipate that I'm going to get you sick. However, if anyone would like to, who believes that they are not sick at all, carry the Torah around just to make sure that you all feel a little bit better, I would be happy if someone would be willing to do that. Please come forward. Thank you. Please rise with me. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kamasecha, malchucha malchut kol olamim, u'menshalcha b'chol dor v'hador. והגבורה והתפארת והנצח והחוד, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה, ומתנשא לכל הראש. Did you get everyone? She was giving it thumbs up. You may be seated. I may need just a second. As I mentioned, Rabbi Tina and I did a little shuffling today, so I have not set this to the right portion, so it will take just 1 second. She may have not planned to do the same part that I was planning to do. In case you're curious, this does not look the same as what I'm looking at. So it's not that I can't read, I promise. But there are 2 different formats that every Torah is in, and I unfortunately have the wrong kind. There we go. Okay. If you would like to follow along, we have on page 269 in your Chumash is where I will be beginning. Again, this is from Parashat Miketz. We are deep into the Joseph story, and the part I'll be reading has to do with surprise. When we think of Joseph, we think of dreams. I'll be reading a part about dreams. Where did I put that yod? Our blessing for the reading of Torah is on page 250, and I'd like to invite you to join with me as we do those. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach, Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah. Vayomer Yosef el Paro, Chalom Paro echad hi, et asher ha'Elohim oseh higid leParo, Sheva parot hatovot, Sheva shanim hena, v'Sheva hashibolim hatovot, Sheva shanim hena, Chalom echad, hu Halom echad hu. It is one dream. V'sheva haparot harekot v'haraot v'ha'alot acharehen sheva shanim hena. V'sheva hashibolim harekot shedufot hakadim yihiyu. Sheva shnei ra'av hi hadavar asher dibarti el paro asher ha'elohim oseh. Her'eh et paro hina hine sheva shanim ba'ot. Sava gadol b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. There will be a great big famine. V'kamu sheva shnei ra'av achareihem. Or actually, sorry, Sava is to be sated. V'nishkach kol hasava be'eretz Mitzrayim. V'kol hara'av et ha'aretz. V'lo ivada hasava be'eretz. Mipnei hara'av hi. Achareichen ki kaved hi ma'od. Ba'al hashanot hachalom el paro pa'amain. Ki nachon hadavar me'im ha'elohim u'mimaher ha'elohim la'asoto. V'ta ira paro ish navon v'chacham v'yashitu al eretz Mitzrayim ya'aseh paro v'fakod pekudim al ha'eretz v'chamesh et eretz Mitzrayim besava shnei hasava vayik v'tzu et kol ochel hashanim hatovot habaot ha'ela. Now I can keep going, but that's not where I wanted to stop. I wanted to stop before. I'm going to stop now. I think it'll be better. That's what happens when I don't prepare in advance to read from the scroll. That is a lesson to you, Jacob, for when you have a bar mitzvah. This is why we look and see where things are beforehand. Page 250. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So there's a word that we use in our Birkat Hamazon, which is v'savata. Does that sound familiar? That's the word that I kept using, which is once you have eaten and you are satiated, then you shall bless. And so it's talking about the full years of grain that they shall have. So on page 269, Joseph then said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dream is one. Oh, nope. That's not where I started. Just 1 second. Maybe it is. We'll see. Joseph then said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dream is one. Yes, it is what I read. What God is doing, God has revealed to Pharaoh. You'll notice there's a lot of Pharaoh speaking to Joseph, and Joseph speaking to Pharaoh. Usually we joke that everything is then God said to Moses, but this is the equivalent for the Joseph story. Pharaoh's dream is one. What God is doing, God has revealed to Pharaoh. The 7 goodly cows are 7 years, and the 7 goodly ears of grain are 7 years. It is all one dream. The 7 cows coming up after them, I like to read the translation because it really says they're ugly cows, and I always kind of giggle when I'm translating. But in here it says that they were emaciated and repulsive, and those will be 7 years. I feel like those words are more in line with the meaning of the text. And the 7 ears of grain that were thin and scorched by an east wind, they are 7 years of famine. This is the very thing I told Pharaoh. What God is doing, God has shown to Pharaoh. Look, 7 years are coming of great plenty in all the land. Again, that's the word savah. But 7 years of famine are coming up after them, and all the plenty in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow. So harsh will it be. Pharaoh's dream was repeated 2 times because the matter has been fixed by God, and God is making haste to accomplish it. Now, I did not mean to keep going, but I did, so I will read you the translation. Let Pharaoh now select a man who is discerning and wise, navon v'chacham. How many of you have heard the expression a chacham? It's like a Yiddish expression. It means a wise person who is very discerning. And set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh act and appoint administrators over the land, and let them take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of plenty. Have them gather up all the surplus food of these good years that are coming, and let them store up grain in the cities under Pharaoh's control, and put it under God. The food will then be a reserve for the land during the 7 years of famine that will prevail in the land of Egypt. Thus the land will not perish through famine. This advice seemed good to Pharaoh and his officials. And Pharaoh said to his officials, "Is there anyone like this to be found, a man with the Spirit of God in him?" And this is the expression, Ish asher ruach Elohim bo. Does the expression ruach Elohim sound familiar to anyone? I keep asking lots of questions, and I'm sorry. I like to engage with you. Ruach Elohim. What is ruach? Wind or breath, or sometimes we say spirit, right? And Elohim is God. So we're looking, says Pharaoh, is there anyone like this to be found, a man with the Spirit of God inside of him? It's a very beautiful expression. While the Torah is in our midst, I'd like for us to take a moment to think of those who are in need of our thoughts, of our prayers. We think first of the hostages as we pray Achenu, prayer for redemption. Our God, the one who raised Joseph up from the pit, be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. Send complete rescue and full redemption to all those held captive. Strengthen their spirit and bring them our prayers that they be protected from all harm. Implant understanding in the heart of the enemy, that they may return the captives in wholeness of body and spirit. Grant wisdom to the Israel Defense Forces, that they may secure freedom for the captives without loss of life. Grant strength of spirit and courage of heart to all the sons and daughters of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, to release bonds of captivity and allow us all to live in freedom. After the words of Psalm 91, they shall call upon me and I will answer them. I will be with them in distress. I will rescue them and honor them. O God, we name in our hearts and minds those who are facing illness and pain. May they benefit from the healing power within them and from the wisdom, experience, and skill of those entrusted with their care. May those who are ill find strength in the knowledge that those who love them and care about them and are praying for them are wishing them well. May they find courage and comfort in any difficult days ahead. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, O God, who brings healing to those who are in need of healing. Today we think especially of Johanna Smith, Julie Bainbridge, Chaim Simcha ben Moshe Umiriam Devora, Augustine Green, Maureen Bolmgren, Binyamina Batshalva V'Adam, Tim Holman, Jim Locke, Jordan Arms, Ella Dubrow, Jeremy Watts, Brandon Watts, Bert Seidel, Bruce Brenner, Barb Gronefeld, Isaac Spicer, David Hernandez, Norman and Carol Leist, Andy Leifheit, Rob Mandel, Ken Rosenzweig, Kyle Kreider, Anna Pullman Garcia, Bobby DeSalvo, Justin Zeisloft, Howard Bodney, Natalie Katz, Kazimira Cairo, Mariah Strickland, Eileen Eady, Catherine Cooper, Sid Gross, Cicely Nathan, and Gary Pacernick. If there are others to be named at this time, please call them forward as my hand goes around the room. We keep them in mind as we turn to the words of Mishaberach, which may be found on page 253. Mishaberach Avotenu, Mekor habracha, Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu, Mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. As we prepare to lift and dress the Torah, the words for Vazot HaTorah are on the opposite page at the bottom of 252. And I would love if I have some volunteers or a volunteer to help me to dress the Torah. Linda, thank you for volunteering. You have been voluntold. Please rise if you're able. Vazot HaTorah asher samashat lifnei bnei Yisrael pi Adonai beyad Moshe. It's been a while since I've done the music and the speaking. My voice, I can say, went about 40 minutes this time. I think the last time I tried it, it was 25, so I think I'm very excited. Even though it sounds like my voice is out, like, I'm doing better. So, a few thoughts for tonight. And I wanted to look specifically at this idea of Ruach Elohim, because it appears only twice in the book of Genesis. And this is looking at something written by Rabbi David Gelfand, and I liked his interpretation, so I wanted to look at this. And I think that's why I kept reading, is because I was thinking of Ruach Elohim, and I knew that was the end of that section, but I didn't want to read that far. But it was in my mind, so I'm glad I got a chance to read it anyway. So when is the first time that we hear of Ruach Elohim? Does anyone know? I feel like you should. I feel like you do. Trust yourselves. No? Creation. Does that sound familiar? How many of you are going, I should have said that because I knew it, right? Okay. So this is when we hear about the Spirit of God was appearing to hover over the face of the waters in the opening verses of Torah. And so Pharaoh uses this phrase to describe a person imbued with divine understanding. And in latter situation, when we come to this point, Joseph has now been humbled by life's experience and realizes that he is not going to be the source of power, because he's the one explaining to Pharaoh that he needs to pick a person, and that this is someone who is important because he's, as we just heard, God has told him what these dreams are supposed to mean, right? That he knows that it's not his interpretation, but he says, this is what God is telling you. early on, was Joseph that mature, do we think? Not so much. He would spill his interpretations, and it would sound like it was coming from him, and that they were his, ability to discern, in which he was saying that his brother and his parents were going to be bowing beneath him. Obviously, that did not result in a very good situation for him because of his arrogance at the time. But in this point, we hear that Joseph is now humbled in his experience, and he recognizes that he is not the source of power. And so when we hear the word Ruach Elohim, we recognize it not to be something that you have just by being smart, but Ruach Elohim is truly a gift from God. It is considered a power that provides strength to do things. What types of things? Anyone want to take a guess? It is by Ruach Elohim that he isn't doing things for himself anymore, but he's using this to help others. It's doing things for the greater good. In this case, in Egypt, he's going to be saving them from famine. And one of the ideas that we have, and it sort of ties into the idea of it being Hanukkah, is when we think about those who fought for freedom, like the Maccabees, that we talk about maturity being an opportunity to sort of take the time to not have things always be so egocentric and about oneself. But as we get older, we recognize that sometimes our dreams are bigger, right? When we think about peace, it's no longer about a friendship that perhaps you're having troubles with, but you're thinking about global peace. You're thinking about a peace not just that you can enjoy, but that the world can. We have examples in history. We see this with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that his dreams were big, right? Not just about himself, but about a people. And so through the challenges in life, I think we're all called upon to mature. And I like to see our examples not of perfection, because I don't want myself or anyone else to think that we are born into this world in a state of perfection, or even that we're expected to leave in a state of perfection, but rather that we learn and we grow from our experiences. And so when we see someone like Joseph, who began coat of many colors and telling his brothers that they were going to be lesser than him, it is a beautiful thing to say this was a child. This is a person who had not yet experienced life. And as he matured, as he grew, as he began to see the world from a different perspective, has grown to a point to expand his understanding of what it means to be an active participant in the world. And that to be an active participant for the sake of others is a much higher aspiration. And I believe that that is what we're hoping for when we talk about Ruach Elohim Bo, that when it was the Ruach Elohim Bo that he saw because of his maturity, and create blessings not just for ourselves, but especially for others, for our loved ones, and for the world as it is. And if you'd like to share, you're welcome to. If you'd like to simply think about that and keep that in mind over Shabbat, that's another wonderful opportunity. So if anyone would like to share, feel free to do so. It is a very quiet group this evening. That's okay. I think it's a big question that if you had it on the tip of your tongue, I would be surprised. And obviously it took Joseph a long time before he could figure that out for himself. So may it not take us as long, as we are at a much older part in our lives, I think. Yes? There are people who are online. I'm going to rephrase it, even though I think someone has matured, that they've grown, that they're not the same person that they were, recognizing that, people can change and go through changes, and that they are not kept in a box of who they were when they were younger. That's also a maturity on behalf of the other, to be able to recognize those changes and that maturity. And so I think that's a beautiful point. Did I capture that okay? Okay. Any other thoughts? Well, we are about to conclude another year, which makes me think of maturity as well. So maybe for all of us as we get into 2025, we will all be a little bit more mature than we were in this year. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity, whatever that might mean for you. We'll turn now to page 256. I invite you to please rise. Eitz Chaim. Nashuva, Hadesh Yameinu, Hadesh Yameinu Kekadam. We turn to the middle of 282. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, Lateit gedula liotzer breshit, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goralenu k'chol hamonam, v'nachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, livnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. V'namar, v'haya Adonai, l'melech al kol ha'aretz, v'yom hahu, yihiyeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. On page 293. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. At this time, we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. We are in a period of Aninut for Barry Greenberg. We are also in a period of Shloshim for Frida Bloom, Lucille Forshee, who is Julie Bainbridge's mother, a friend of Meredith Klein's, and Cynthia Weston, Matt Sobo's grandmother. I'd like for us to also remember those who have died at this season in years past, those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. David Blumenthal, Betty Bloomer, Charles Booth, Isabel Fleece, Charles Scott Chaz Goldberg, Jack J. Goldstein, Miriam Goldstein, Bina Diamond Gradsky, Albert Grant, Etta Greenhouse, Abraham Heller, Charles Jacobs, Mr. Milton Cantor, Abe Kaplan, Jean F. Kritzer, Martin Lazar, Ruth Lehman, Pauline G. Levy, Max L. Lewin, Bert Lieberman, Jeanette Mayman, Ruth Rubin Margolis, Elmer L. Moyer, Dr. Julius Ullman, Sidney Orthwin, Harry B. Patterson, Louis Pollock, Gladys Ressler, Michael A. Rosen, Al Rosen, Nettie Goldswig Rossett, Dr. Frank Rubin, Jack H. Seidel, Ralph D. Shear, Dorothy Schottenstein, Sylvia M. Schrager, Pauline Schwartz, Gertrude Schoen, Philip Stein, Wilbur Sussman, Stephen James Thal, Adeline Traxler, Sarah Wheeler, Ed A. Ziskin. If there are others to be mentioned or to be pronounced more correctly, I invite you to please call those forward. We invite those who are in mourning or who are remembering to please rise first. And then we all rise together as we turn to 294 for the words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. Amen. Yehe shemei rabbah mivarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehe shlama rabba mimain osei shalom bimromav huya aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zirkonam livracha, may their memories always and only be for a blessing. Amen. You may be seated. As we conclude, we have our Hanukkah songs again in the back. And I was thinking we could do Not by Might. I believe at least one person in this room knows how to sing that with me. Not by, page 365 if I didn't say it. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. The children sing, the children dream, and their tears may fall, but we'll hear them call, and another song will rise, another song will rise, another song will rise. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone shall we all live in peace. Not by might, not by power, shalom. It is much better with guitar. But that's okay. I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, a Hanukkah Sameach, and in the hall we have our Kiddush and Motzi, and hopefully you'll grab some yummy, delicious desserts. There are some donuts for Hanukkah. They are not filled, but there's something that is filled with, with jelly next to it, just in case. So we did the best we could. Shabbat Shalom. Happy Hanukkah.